Develop a fortune state of mind, state of mind. It's time for a date with, time for a date with the Dorseys.
Hello, 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 and welcome to yet another date with the Dorseys. I am Dr. Jatan
and Floyd Dorsey.
The fourth.
That's right.
Hence, again, the date with the Dorseys.
Date with the Dorseys.
Together we make Dim Darn Dorseys.
Okay.
I said Dim Darn Dorseys.
3 times.
I said Dim to the Darn Dorseys.
I love it. I love it.
And we are so excited to bring you yet another episode. We just recently closed out a wonderful, beautiful, tremendous
Okay.
series that you should definitely check out if you hadn't already. It was our couple series, but hey, we are here to continue this thing with a new topic, not necessarily another series, but another topic.
There we go.
And you may be wondering, okay, well, what is that topic? Glad you asked, but before I answer that question, of course, we gotta...
Oh, you're gonna make them wait for a little bit?
We're gonna wait
okay.
Make it wait just a tad bit.
That works.
Before we mention exactly what our topic is for today, for those of you who are tuning in for the very first time, welcome, welcome, welcome. And this won't be your last. But since it is your first, we want to let you know what you've stumbled upon or what you intentionally, which I hope most of you have, intentionally press play on. And this is, again, a Date with the Dorseys podcast where we encourage, where we help you develop.
Enhance.
All of those descriptive words. But we, in essence, help you enhance your fortune state of mind.
Fortune state of mind.
And fortune is spelled I-V-T-U-N-E, state of mind. Now, when you think of the word fortune, and we are thinking of it as F-O-R-T-U-N-E, that definition, but we just spell it a little different, right? Same connotation, different spelling.
That's it.
And when we talk about a fortune state of mind, we truly mean developing a holistic you. And when we say holistic, this encompasses 5 F's that we have employed in our life, in our relationship, and so forth and so on. And those 5 F's are what?
Family. Faith. Fitness.
Fun.
Finances. Oh, then the fun.
And then the fun.
fun's at the end.
We always got to sing it.
Okay.
See, I messed that one up. But those are the 5 F's essentially. So all of our topics are centered around a fortune state of mind, but built upon those 5 pillars. Y'all follow me?
Following.
Okay, good.
You're a good leader.
So with that being said, whenever you tune in, you just never know. You may get one of the F's, all of the F's, a couple of the F's. You just never know, but you're going to get some type of F's. And it's not the curse word. It's going to be all those good 5 F's.
That's it.
Now, with all of that being said, you can also find us on Instagram and Facebook at Dim Darn Dorseys. You can email us as well at Fortune. I'm sorry, I do that all the time. I get so excited to say Fortune again. It's support at fortuneenterprise.com. And we'll mention that again, of course, later on in the episode because we would definitely want to hear from you. We'd like to see your likes, your loves, your shares, and all of that good stuff. Now that we've gotten the housekeeping out the way.
That's the intro.
Now that we've got all the good stuff out the way, back to what we'll be talking about today. So, as we often do, we, collectively as a unit, we take time to explore life, love, business, and as we mentioned, fun. And part of the fun is entertainment, right?
Entertainment.
Which includes television, a little comedy here and there, just different things.
We work it all in.
We work it all in. But for the sake of this conversation, we happen to take some time to watch the story that was inspired by the life of Madam C.J. Walker, which was a pretty popular, I don't even want to call it a docu-series, but it was a series about her, or inspired by her life, I'll say
That's
that.
It. Not to say that it depicted the
exactly
true accounts, right?
Yes.
As we know that, when you're creating productions and movies, some things will be overly embellished and some things may be omitted, but that's the way it goes. So we're really talking about what was projected on the screen.
On the screen in this particular inspired by series. Okay. So our discussion is, again, based on that movie, not the actual lived experience per se of Madam C.J. Walker. And if you're wondering who she is, everyone may not know. And she was one of the first female millionaires in the beauty industry.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, with that being said, if you haven't watched the movie, or the series rather, it's on Netflix. And it's been pretty popular here lately. So if you haven't tuned in, make sure you do. But for the sake of this conversation, again, we're just going to talk about how we, as we watched that, pulled out of the series some connections to our 5Fs that I mentioned earlier.
And we typically always do that, right? Whether if it's something we're watching on TV or experiences that we have in life.
Absolutely.
Doesn't matter. It just, we find a way that we see through that lens of those 5Fs and those 5 principles, and how do they truly apply to our lives or the accounts of those that we are watching and seeing. And it's important, right? Because if these are the pillars that we build our foundation upon, then it's only right that we continue to embody that in everything that we do.
Yes.
And so in doing so, watching the film, we really were able to see and highlight some of the key points there that we'd love to share with you all.
Mm-hmm. And I guess the first thing that was a takeaway is the fact that my husband was calling me Madam FD.
That's right. Madam FD Dorsey. So we're going to make sure we fix that on the outro, since we didn't correct it on the intro. So it's going to be
I forgot to mention that one. Yeah, so that was the going joke. So nevertheless, we can hop right into this thing. So as we mentioned, you already know what the 5Fs are. So we'll just start with, how about start with fitness?
Yeah, fitness is good.
Okay.
Good.
So you may be wondering, well, what the heck was talked about in this movie along the lines of fitness?
Right. Because I didn't see a lot of working out. I mean, I didn't see.
So let's see how the Dorseys are going to switch that and twerk that.
Where are we going to go with that?
But nevertheless, within the storyline, it kind of built up to a place of which health was a concern for her, right? And though there weren't many specifics called out about it along the way, once that point pivotal point, I'll say, in her life occurred, where she was diagnosed with kidney failure, we began to think back at some of the things we saw leading up to that moment.
That's it.
And one of them was when she was, I guess, stressed out about one of the negotiations that may not have worked out, and they showed her sitting at the table eating. And,
I mean, it was a large spread.
Yes.
I mean, this was one of those, Thanksgivings that, I mean, it wasn't your typical Sunday dinner. It was
absolutely
far much more beyond that. This was a pretty large spread. And with that, she just, I mean, everyone was gone, and she indulged. And they showed a flash where it just looked like all the food was totally devoured. I mean, it was gone.
Right.
And, for us, as we think about that, now, granted, some of the things are maybe genetics with the kidney failure, and not to discount that by any means. However, with fitness as well as with health, we look at both of those together. It's important to have that mindset of how am I going to continue to thrive and be that legacy that others can experience it. And the only way to do that is to make sure you're taking care of your body, right? Mm-hmm. So what you put in your body is going to be a manifestation of the results of what's going to come out.
Absolutely.
So it was pretty interesting, though, that, I mean, we really didn't see a lot of working out, a lot of those types of things. However, we did see some of the things on more of the downside, right? In terms of that, from a fitness and health. And again, this is truly on what the film displayed. Not to say that these are the accounts of real life, but I think we all maybe experience those moments where, whether if we are in pain, we're in sorrow, we're sad, and we often find ourselves indulging in our favorite comfort foods. Mm-hmm. Whatever that is for each individual, it may vary. However, it is something to keep in mind that comfort food will really make you comfortable for your whole lifestyle, right? Because it can continue to add up and add up and add up, and next thing you know, you're becoming something that you truly not intending to be.
Right. And I think it also ties into when we, think about stress levels, anxiety, and things of that sort too. That people continue to deal with these days, and I'd say it's more prominent now just because it's more spoken about with media having developed as it has.
That's right.
But just observing how she went through those different phases as a business startup and being the first and having to push through all these barriers and just imagining the weight that she had and the stress levels that she may have been carrying that could have ultimately weighed upon her in a way that, assisted in this health decline.
Right. And again, as we mentioned earlier, she's a pioneer. So there wasn't a blueprint laid out for her on how to navigate the terrain and figure these things out and how to balance the stress and the pressures and the things that she was forging through this, unseen, unknown territory, right? So she had to adapt in her own way that she could find her own comfort in this place of uncertainty.
Yeah.
And it's a place we often find ourselves in as we navigate life. That's unknown to us, right? It's uncertainty. So what do we do when we're in an uncomfortable and an uncertain situation? We do things to find our internal comfort.
Yeah.
And for her, it appeared that it was indulging or overindulging into the food of her choices. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And when you say that was a time of which she was pioneering, it just reminds me of now, if we're comparing that to business startups now, where oftentimes you have this passion, you have this desire to do something or to implement some type of business, and you may not know all the ins and outs. You may not know where to start, where to end, what's coming, what's going, but you now have more resources to leverage in a way that could help boost you, beyond that. But sometimes we tend to want to go at it alone and cause that self-inflicted stress and pain and strife. But just looking at that experience for her, again, as it was portrayed in this Inspired by series, she did have someone that initiated some steps, right, along the lines in the same industry, to the same clients and all of this, right? And she wanted to work with this person to collaborate and partner and build it together. That didn't quite work out. So in her vision, she was still pioneering it because she was taking it even steps further. Yeah.
In a way that the original person that she wanted to partner with probably didn't even imagine.
Exactly.
Right? And so with that, just imagine if they were able to partner and how much less stress and pressure and pain that would have been on her physically, right? And I'm sure they would have really been able to make even much more money and things of that nature. Would have been able to manifest to inspire even more people in their respective communities.
Yeah.
So again, I think that's fitness, and so that's how we saw it. I mean, I'm sure you all maybe, if you watched it, there are things you probably would have picked up on that we didn't see. But again, we wanted to call out that because it's not only did it stand out in the film, it also stands out in the everyday life that we live day over day.
Yep.
All right.
And then it's not like we're going to touch every single topic because we have, not that we are structured on our time, but we like to keep it to a good,
I want to make sure you're getting what you need.
Yeah, keep your attention.
Make sure you're getting your money's worth.
Oh, okay. So the next F is family. I think this was a huge one in this storyline.
It was.
Because there were so many different ways that there were disconnects, I'll say, with her relationship with her husband, to her relationship with her one and only daughter.
Yeah.
There were just so many disconnects displayed throughout. And I guess we can start with the relationship with her husband, since that was like a huge...
Yeah, it was a huge thing.
Yes. So from that situation, I'd say that she was so engulfed in her being successful that she was tone deaf to the needs of her spouse. Mm-hmm. And that weighed heavy on him. And in doing so, she had some experiences throughout it that she didn't inform him of, and he didn't inform her that he was feeling the way that he was. So then there grew a disconnect between the two of them, because they, for one, were not communicating.
And it was a lack of transparency.
Lack of transparency
Right.
as well.
So that is huge. And I think, you get into the space of the dynamics of what's a traditional relationship, what's a non-traditional relationship. Men, I want to be the breadwinner and I want to make sure I provide. And then, and the woman's, well, you stay at home and be barefoot, pregnant in the kitchen. So all these types of things that, depending on your worldview, would make you cringe at different types of relationship models. But in this one, it was very unique, right? Because we're talking about, this was several years ago, where a traditional relationship had a certain view. And in this one, what made it so unique is that she was really driving the nature of the relationship, which tied with the business.
Yeah.
And with that, she was so engulfed, to the point you made earlier, that it did really make her seem a bit tone deaf to the needs, to the attention, to the desires of her husband, which it could be concerning. But likewise, it seems like her husband wasn't being transparent and being truthful and clear to her at some point in that relationship. So it's important. Again, I think the transparency piece is very important. But beyond the relationship with her husband, I will say that I admired her sense of family, right?
Yeah.
Her sense of family, it was absolutely beautiful on how she just brought everyone in, and you're going to be a part of the business. You're going to be a part of her empire that she was pioneering, right? And it was just, no second thought, it appeared, that her son-in-law, come on in and we have a job for you to do until
no
you
matter
can,
how many mistakes he made.
no matter how many mistakes
Yeah.
you hear, and we're still thriving, we're still family. The father-in-law. I mean, these are things that when we talk about family and business, that you just really you don't see these type of stories every day in this world that we live in now. Oftentimes you see that you can't do the business with family, and those types of things happen. However, what I saw that was very unique with her is she stayed true to her vision, and she stayed true to embracing them as they were all a part and key parts of her driving and pioneering her business and her vision.
Yeah. And when we say pushing or pioneering her vision and her mission, connecting that with the family, it was very important to her to build a legacy. And it seemed like almost every instance and every opportunity she had, she would have that same conversation with her daughter to explain to her. And maybe early on it wasn't as transparent, as we mentioned, as she was not with her husband as well. I would say that she was not transparent enough with her daughter initially either, because her conversations with her about building a legacy wasn't backed by what she was thinking thoroughly through. It was just, when are you going to have some kids? When are you going to get married? Type of conversations.
Go find your husband.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was like feeling pressured. I'm sure her daughter was feeling pressured. Like, Mom, I'm not ready to get married. That's not what I want to do. But instead, in her mind, she's thinking, I'm trying to create this legacy so that this thing that I'm building and working hard for right now, that we're working hard for right now, will continue for generations and generations. And of course, she eventually communicated that to her daughter. But I think had she mentioned that earlier on, perhaps it would have gone a different direction for them. And again, I have to keep inserting this. We're still just talking about the Inspired by series. Okay, just in case you're tuning in at this point. This is not necessarily about her actual lived experiences, her being Madam C.J. Walker. This is discussions about the recently released series.
Yeah, and the last thing to close out on family that I also saw that was pretty endearing was that she not only considered her family, but she was really empowering her employees to be creators and be providers for their respective families, to give them that sense of pride and ownership. And she was really, really driving that model, right? Because she, at some point in the film, she could have gone a different direction in terms of her business model.
Right.
However, she had in mind that the real reason why she started this was to empower others so they could then have a piece of the empire, so they can do something with to really elevate their own respective families. So again, that consideration when you're a part of organizations like that, wherever you may be working for, or if you're an entrepreneur, if you have employees, that's just something to consider. How are you elevating your employees or your people so that they could truly be ones that could be in a better position to provide and thrive in their own respective lives to impact and have a better life for them and their families. So again, that was a huge takeaway for me as you consider the family aspect, really backed by the way that she conducted herself in business as well.
Good. That's good stuff. So let's mosey right on into the next step.
Mosey.
I mean, we're talking about the good old days, so we got to use some of that terminology. We're going to mosey right on over. So, faith. So they had many scenes where she was attending church, right? And they had to they got dressed up and, you know, did the whole...
I think she stepped out a few times too, didn't she?
Did she? She stepped out on the faith.
She had to step out. Yeah. Listen.
Yeah, I played on that word.
I like
right?
that. I like that.
And then there were times where her faith wavered. There was a scene where she really did not want to go to church, even though there was something that she had been routinely doing. And even the folks in the church were very supportive of her and her efforts. But I recall that day when she just wasn't feeling it. And her daughter came in and she was like, wait, you're not dressed. What are you doing? And she kind of had to pep her up and, you know, get her reignited with excitement about her faith to get her to go back to church.
Yeah.
But I say all that to say that you could tell within that her faith was centered in the church for her. And she also wanted to, I guess it was partially the fact that she had so many insecurities that she was challenged in her faith area as well, which was reflected in how she was being with her family and being in her business.
Yeah, because she was harnessing this internal storyline that she was playing back over and over to herself of her insecurities, and you know, I don't think she truly dealt with that piece. And if she did, it was much later in life, but especially as the movie or the series was progressing, you can see that those insecurities that I think the strength of her faith could have pushed her through.
Yeah.
However, it seemed like it was an internal battle, right? At times she was up and feeling good, and at times she was down at those low moments. And I'm sure many of you all can attest to that, because we all have those feelings. At times we feel very, very good and strong about our position in life, our connection, that we're one. And at times we feel separated and we feel that we're alone. We feel vulnerable and we feel maybe insecure. And that's the internal battles of life that we live. And it's important that we cleave and hold on to the part that makes us stronger. However, we must recognize those parts that makes us, you know, insecure or vulnerable. And that's something that it's important that we deal with, face it head on. Another thing I saw on Faith I thought was very interesting was she said that God gave her a vision, right? She used that line. And, you know, I don't think anyone could say what God gave her or didn't give her, but it seems to be a very cliche type of thing when, you know, people are approaching individuals for sales or whatever it may be to grab attention or to get followings or things of that nature, using that type of nomenclature. And so it's important for us to be able to be careful, I'd say, with that. And if it's truly an inspired vision that came from God or wherever that source is, then I'd say, you know, make sure that it's important to communicate it, right? But I'm just very leery of those words, and people just throwing it out there. Now, just loosely throwing it out, and it seems like the way it was depicted that it just loosely came out. So again, it's just something that stood out to me to be cautious about. But nonetheless, I think her intentions were true. Her, you know, that what she really wanted to do. But that approach, it just seems to be very loose in how she came out with it.
That did light a fire under her I guess I'll call it competition, because again, it was that in this movie. So it did spark a flame, but it also, I think, created a sense of awareness for her competitor as well. It was like, oh wait, she's right. We could have done this together. She had this vision that could have taken this thing, that did take this thing to the next level.
Oh yeah.
Had I been connected to that when she first brought it to me.
Had I let go of my own
insecurities and had the faith in that.
That's it.
That we could have been. I could have been on that ride together with her.
We could have been rolling.
So then,
let's talk about the money in the business, the finances, right?
So with the finances, she definitely was not afraid to ask for the money. I can appreciate that about her. She knew her worth, and she was not gonna back down on that. So it doesn't matter if she was in a room full of men.
Go ahead and unpack that. Go ahead.
You're silly. It didn't matter who she was in the company of. It was all about business, and it was many times that she had to push her husband to say, "Look, this is what we want. Go get it."
Yeah.
Like, I can't show up right now. Can you go do this? Like, when I say that, I think about the scene when she went to the event where it was just all men, and she was hoping to get called on by Booker T. Washington. He went into the restroom. Obviously, it was a men's restroom. And she couldn't enter. But she was like, this is my moment, because he hadn't called me up yet and he's by himself in the restroom.
Hey.
Husband, where you at?
Where you at? I got to tell you to giddy up. Right. You know why? Why don't I have to tell you to giddy up? Let's go.
Exactly.
It's game time.
It's game time. Get off the bench. And so I just appreciate that about her, because that was her opportunity to leverage some investors. She was in an environment where she knew the money was flowing, the money was there, and all she had to do was get that mic time, right?
That's it. She was so committed to her vision, to her business, to her passion, that she was able to think so quick on her feet. And that's why, that's what I really admired, I think, from a business sense, that it wasn't just impulsive where, she was just randomly doing things. That no, she was so vested and seeing it so clear that no matter what came in her way, she was so agile and able to make adjustments to really go after it, regardless of what those obstacles were.
Yeah.
I think it oftentimes where, we may all in our personal lives or professional lives have a vision, but if we're not that committed and that vested into that vision, any obstacle can detour us or discourage us from moving forward. But in the film, I'll tell you, she was so committed that she had saw that vision through and through, that no matter what came in her way, she was going to be nimble, agile, and quick too.
And persistent. Yes. Yeah, I like that piece. And then also the fact that this is something that you hear so often now from entrepreneurs. And just to know that this was heavy drilled in this movie, the fact that she used her own story, her own pain to make the profit, right? She translated her story so well that people were compelled by it. Not only compelled by it, but they were inspired by it. Not only inspired by it, but they were influenced, because now they're
take
looking
the check,
like,
take it
right here, just take it. Even in times where initially their response was wait, it was probably their hesitation was probably more so because they hadn't yet experienced that from a woman before. And so it's kind of like, I'm taken aback by this, so no. But then when you leave that and you receive it and let it sit with you for a minute, you're like, how can I not support this?
Exactly. I mean, this was in a world where something has never been done before by an individual. Again, at that time, the idea and picture of beauty was totally different. It wasn't the way, it was being depicted, how she looked at the time. So she was really going against the currents, going against the waves in so many different ways, that she really, really had to be that assertive and strong about her plan.
Right. Wow. She had to be assertive and strong. But not only those two, but she had to be consistent, because there were times where she was told no. And as they say now, every no is getting you that much closer to a yes. And so had she not believed that and just stopped at that first no, just imagine where she would not have been.
Yeah. I think one of the things, and before we close out on finances, that stood out is she neglected to see early on, to see the power of her network, right? In her mind, she was thinking she had to go through this certain path. I had to go through the men, right? Had to be on this stage in front of the men to get them to endorse her, right? So oftentimes as we, as entrepreneurs, or even in your corporate profession, you may think you have to go through a certain group, a certain network, a certain connection, when all along you have everything you need within your own network, right? So at the very, and it wasn't at the end, but largely what she needed came from the very women that she had started to build that relationship with. And she, in her mind, was thinking, I have to go through the men, but the women were there to really write her the checks to really invest into her business. And that's, to me, that's powerful.
Wow.
Right? How often do we neglect what's right there in our hands,
Yeah.
what's right there in our laps and in our faces? And why are you looking at me like that, like you're in my face right now?
Because
Okay,
I'm
okay.
just thinking about
right
what
here.
you would say. You would say playing in my away game.
That's it. You got home court advantage right here. You don't have to go on the road, So those are some things to consider. What's in your hand right now, and I guarantee you, it's certainly enough for you to take that next step.
That's good. Yeah, I think that we pretty much cover finance in a nutshell. But she was out to get that money, and she eventually got it. That's the summary of that.
She got it.
She got it. So the last F, as we mosey on to the next F, is
Moseying along.
it is fun. If you listen to any of the episodes, that I always have to sing.
Got to sing fun.
Fun. But that was one thing I saw that was neglected and somewhat absent in her life. Although she had a daughter that was filled with fun, right? She oftentimes observed her daughter while she was trying to conduct business. Now, granted, it may not have been the appropriate time to have the fun, but she would observe her daughter, like in one scene, riding the bicycle around in the factory.
Right.
And she kept getting distracted when she was trying to have a business meeting with her saleswomen. And she just could not accept the fact that her daughter was just I don't know, lackadaisical is probably how she saw it. Like, this is business. You have to always be in this mode. So, just observing her as, with her reaction to her daughters enjoying life. And I'm not saying daughters in plural, I mean, possessive.
Right.
but later on, they did show her finally getting on a bike and trying to ride it around where she was smiling and having a good time.
Like, I can breathe now.
Right.
Right. And I think there's 2 points or 2 parts within it that I recognize I saw fun. One of which was right when they were having the dinner before they were expecting Booker T to show up. And her and her husband, they danced, and it was a great showing for some of the family and friends that were there. It was a great time, and it seemed like she was really enjoying it. But what was peculiar was that she was having fun, but it was tied to the business, right? And then even when the second one was when she initially had planned on her and her husband going to New York. He was thinking, hey, it's a vacation. It'd be great to get away, right? And in her mind, like, yeah, but it's for business. But yeah, you can have some fun too. And ultimately, that trip turned into what seemingly was fun for her, but was still tied to business.
Yeah.
And I had to really take a step back. And for some, that may be quite healthy and functioning for them to have their fun tied to their business. But I would really challenge that thought and say, it's also important to just really have fun for the sake of fun, for the joy of the people you like, the people you love, the places you want to go, and the things you like to do outside of your business. Because if you're depending on your business for your enjoyment and for your fun, trust me, you may be neglected, or you may be on one heck of a roller coaster ride. And so finding that time.
You may be on it alone.
That's it. That's it. That's it. So you certainly want to make sure you find time for that fun.
That's good. So we've covered all the F's, from fitness to family to faith and finance, and right into the fun of Madam C.J. Walker and her story as told on the movie, inspired by her life. So I hope that you enjoyed some of the things that we shared here. Again, we tend to take in things regardless of what it is that we're experiencing and tie it to the 5 F's, and that's what we did as we were watching this film, and just wanted to take the time to share it with you all. I'm sure you have, if you've watched it, you have your own opinions, you have your own thoughts, and probably have seen many discussions floating around social media and the news as well, right?
And if you haven't watched it, I'm sure after hearing this, you're probably going to go watch it.
You will. and we're not getting any dibs on
that. No, we need some of that Madam CJ money.
We do. But yeah, so
Madam FD Dorsey.
Yes.
Closeout queen. Let's hit him with the outro.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So make sure that you do drop us a note. Let us know what your thoughts were. If you did watch it, go watch it. If you hadn't watched it, go watch it. Come back and drop us some tips on it, what your thoughts were after experiencing the same film, the same series. But other than that, make sure you tune in. Make sure you like, love, download, listen to this episode along with the rest, because we have plenty more out there for you. If you're looking to find us on social media, we can be connected with, we can be social with you on Instagram and Facebook at Dem Darn Dorseys, DEM Darn Dorseys. And then you can email us at support@fortuneenterprise.com. That's IVTUNE enterprise.com. With that being said, we are looking forward to connecting with you on the next episode. But until then, bye for now.
Bye.
Develop a fortune state of mind, state of mind. It's time for a date with, time for a date with the Dorseys.